We are live.
Hello
Everybody who guys
again.
are just now joining, thank you so much for joining the Unfiltered Historian. We are going to be talking about a very interesting topic tonight that I think are very near and dear to both John and I's heart. Well, without further ado, I am the Tattooed Historian, or Tyler. Come over
You're
here.
not the tattooed historian. You're
Did
the
I say
unfiltered.
tattooed? Unfiltered. Wow, I said tattooed. I have tattoos. I get confused sometimes. But I am the unfiltered historian. Excuse me. I can't be looking at my tattoos and saying stuff anymore and looking at all the comments. Guys, welcome to the stream. If y'all are just now joining in, we have Key Guitars here. Hello, bud. Eric, welcome to the stream.
How you doing?
Hello. Clinton also, thank you for saying hello. I tried to respond, but we were in our 30-second little thing there, so I didn't respond right away. I said tattooed. I'm still stuck in my mind at how I even said that. There's been a lot going on the past few days, so it's what a whirlwind. Yesterday was a 12-hour day of sleep for me, dude. I haven't had that in so long. It was probably my fault for staying up so late, but I keep. Yeah, please tell John. I hope he was watching and saw that, and if he sees us back, I actually call myself a tattooed historian. I cannot believe that.
Shame.
Dude, it's like my brain was reloading or something. I don't even know what happened.
Copyright infringement.
Gosh, we do one good video and I get copyrighted with them already. God darn. But no, Unfiltered Historian, if you haven't seen the page yet or understood the change, it's not so we can just go in here and say every cuss word under the sun. It's actually just so we can bring more real history, some stuff that isn't always talked about. It was going to start at 6:30, but we decided that, John wanted to have a little bit of an earlier start, and that's okay. That I kind of did too. There's daylight. I got some stuff I want to read later as well, but I still want to make sure we bring this to you guys because, again, of how much of a topic it is. So John actually spawned the idea when we were getting ready to go live for the which one do we do? The ones on the July 4th stream when we talked about wrapping up the 158 and some of the stuff. He was really talking to me, I think, personally more so about the aftermath and how important one specific book is to this campaign and this study in general. And I absolutely agree with him that this is extremely important. This is the Aftermath of Battle or Strange and Blighted Land, the Aftermath of Battle by Gregory A. Coco. And he's got it right there. And I have a stack here I want to introduce you guys as well before we get going into the topic. But I also have a worn copy, and I got to get another one like I do with most of my others. Oh, you said John starts at 6:30?
Yeah, not me, John. The other John. There's too many Johns.
Okay, cool. Well, let him know at 6:30 that I called him myself the tattooed historian on accident, please. I want to see his response. That was horrible. Yeah, let him know it's 6:30 that would happen. But back to topic number one, the aftermath of battle. Yeah, getting a new book is in the definite near future, I think, because this is just absolutely folded and torn and highlighted, which is kind of how I like my. It's right, but that's how my first copies are supposed to be. They're supposed to be a tear. They're supposed to be a kind of some highlighting, some underlining, because that shows that the book's being studied. It shows that it's taken out in the field and it's using even if the glue comes off because it's super hot outside, which it's been super hot outside recently.
Yeah.
Even on my breaks at work these past few days, I've gone out to the car and I've torn through at least a chapter or two while I could, just sitting in the car with the air conditioning on, hoping it doesn't fall apart. But it has. Nonetheless, excited to have this as a material because I think Coco does give us such an invaluable book when it comes to the topic of, the aftermath of battle, because let's face it, the aftermath was horrible. Absolutely horrible. And John, I think I like what you said about it being required reading, and I would like to see if you could touch on that a little more, if you don't mind.
Well, basically, it's just about the fact that, we go to these battlefields, we see everything that happens in terms of trying to study the land and everything like that. And then we always, in our studies, we follow the armies, we follow them to Monterey Pass, follow them to Falling Water, so on and so forth. What happens with the people? What's happening with the bodies, the wounded, the visitors? Because, again, I think we mentioned this the other day, too. And bear with me, I had dental work, everybody. So
yeah, everybody's going to be talking.
The big Gettysburg became a battlefield visitation tourism spot, basically like July 5th, 1863. People are already there. Probably July 4th. People are already there. I know O'Sullivan, Brady, and all them. They show up. I think today.
Today. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think they start showing up today.
Mm-hmm.
So
don't worry. I have two other books to cover the photos. I got Frassinito's The Early Photography in Gettysburg, and I've also got
Oh
the
yeah.
infamous Journey in Time. So we got some
Oh yeah,
photos
I
to
got
dissect
that
today
right
for sure.
there.
Awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, both of
definitely.
them are great, I think, and they're going to help tonight in breaking down some of the pictures. I wish I had a better sense of this whole new thing you're seeing us on. So again, if you haven't joined us recently and seen that we are now on Restream, which is everywhere, that meaning I can broadcast to more than just Twitch and not get in trouble for it. So like Twitch does not like me going on their platform and then branching out. Even if they did, I'd still leave the affiliate status so that we can keep this up. I hear Kendrick says my eyes were open to that when I worked at the Seminary Ridge Museum. Last patient left the hospital on September 16th, 1863. Wow, that's one day before the first year of Antietam.
Yep, that's a
Yeah,
heck of a stat when you think about it.
yeah,
So
no
what was
kidding.
going on? And that's where a lot of what's in this book is about. It's military history is one thing, but military is not just tactics and battlefield maps and things like that. This
Right.
is what it's about. I mean, there's a great quote in the forward written. The forward in this book is written by Eric A. Campbell, and this is going December 1994. But he uses a quote here from a soldier. Even the sickening smell of the battlefield is there, as one soldier later wrote, overall hugging the earth like a fog, poisoning every breath, the pestilential stench of decaying humanity.
Mm,
So, yeah.
that's a lot.
So it's basically like a poisonous stench, which it was. I mean, we give off fumes with our bodies. I mean, we are organic matter, and so
Bags of meat, yeah.
yep. So it's just I don't know. I've smelled some repugnant stuff in my life, but I don't know if I could have handled the smell of. You know what? I don't know what Fredericksburg would have smelled like being a winter battle, but I can't imagine
Well, and
July heat
we
and
have to think
humidity.
about that too. With Fredericksburg, for example, we have a snow happening. It's colder, so the air is obviously but the atmosphere is obviously going to have more of a precipitation aspect to it. So we're going to see a lot of rainfall, maybe some significant snowfall, and I think with that, um, the decomposition rate is rather fast because like especially when we're talking about July 4th into the 6th. July 4th, there's a huge rainstorm in
Mm-hmm.
Gettysburg day after the battle. So there's accounts I think in Coco's book that really refer to the bodies being a soupy mess, and I've said that a lot when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
that because it's literally
Yeah.
just what they're describing, and having to use gum blankets to pick up bodies that have turned into literal liquids and put them into a burial trench that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with that comes directly from the rain and maybe just some of the way that the heat. I mean, it's god awfully hot obviously in July of
Mm-hmm.
1863, as it is now. I mean, today, July 6th, even in Fredericksburg, we had a heat index of 100. I stood outside at Sheets just for 5 minutes today and was right back inside feeling like I just jumped out of a pool. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can only imagine what that's doing to a decomposing body multiplied by a
Mm-hmm.
couple thousand. That's
Had
that's
it.
that's going to be mighty stinky, and I can only imagine again with the winter really playing an effect in the elements of the winter. That definitely
Mm-hmm.
does something. That you may be right though, because we have instances like the ice house in 1866. Now, mind you, these
Mm-hmm.
bodies are buried in 1862 in December and first
Mm-hmm.
discovered in 1866. And I shouldn't say discovered, but maybe more so rediscovered.
Yeah.
But they're not badly decomposed. They've
No,
been,
they were
in
fresh.
a cold ice. Like, yeah, they're not. It's weird how you can go from 62 to 66 and still have these bodies preserved almost.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But
Yep.
that's something to also, I think, to take in consideration. But I think we're getting a little into Fredericksburg more so than we should
Yeah,
be in
no, we have a
Gettysburg.
tendency to do that. I am
Um,
curious. I don't
Good.
know who this Key Garis
That is
93 is.
buddy Kendrick,
Okay.
Seminary Hospital flooded. Here we go. So
Was
up here.
McFarland technically a POW since it became under Seminary? Seminary Ridge became Confederate. So was it a POW just during the battle and then just left behind as the Confederates left? Is that McFarland? Was that like his whole thing? Fought, wounded, seminary, POW, boom. Yes, technically.
Yep.
And
So
left
he's
behind.
if you didn't see that comment before, folks, he did say Seminary Hospital flooded and wounded men drowned down there. Cries were heard from diarist Sarah Broadhead, who went to help as a nurse after the battle. Now, I thought I think I got that from you actually when I had my tour from you, man. And I just even thinking about that alone chills my blood to know that something like that actually happened. And drowning in a seminary. And who thought being in that basement that drowning was going to be something to even
Right.
face? Let alone being wounded in a battle and already having to be kind of confided to a hospital, but to now face the fact of drowning
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those horrors we talk about when it comes to these Civil War battles. That these are
Oh yeah.
absolutely just
Oh yeah.
unimaginable things happening,
One
and
of the
this
biggest things I
is one of
always
those.
mention, and again, I don't always mean to go away from Gettysburg, but like, you have North versus South, but Mother Nature knows no foe. We talk
No,
about the fires in the wilderness. Fire didn't care if you were wearing blue or gray in the wilderness and
no, it
stuff like
didn't.
that. Mother Nature will always win. Bottom
It
line.
will.
Bottom line.
Well, I think this is a good place, John, for if you would like to start us off a little bit to kind of just maybe introduce us to what's going on July 4th into the 6th. I think we should start with the 4th, really, with the rainstorm and moving in with the fact that there are bodies everywhere. There is
Oh
now a
yeah.
technical problem.
Yeah, there's you got Lee starting out, in Bowdoin starts moving the Confederate
Mm,
hospital train out of
mm.
Gettysburg, if you want to call it that. I mean, that thing was long,
Oh,
and
yeah.
as they're moving out, and it's an amazing thing as these troops are moving out, how coordinated it was. The fact that Lee can kind of get that put together.
Mm.
Honestly, the Rains was probably the greatest thing to happen to Lee in the Confederacy.
Oh, I
I
agree.
don't
Yeah.
know if Meade was going to launch an attack. He's got the Sixth Corps and Fifth Corps, mainly the Sixth Corps for the most part, all set. But basically, they move out. It's July 6th or 7th when Meade starts moving out.
Mm.
I'm trying to remember exactly which day they start moving, but but basically what you have is people already coming to the battlefield, people taking in sites of the hospitals. I mean, there's an account in here, and I was looking for it, and it's really bothering me that I can't find it.
Mm.
When people were arriving on the battlefield, and this was only within a couple days, they went to a spot where a North Carolina regiment was fighting, and the dead bodies were literally still lined up as if they were marching in formation into battle, which actually they were, shot
Mm.
down literally in that front line, and we all know how they attack, Napoleonic tactics, shot down,
Right.
boom, done. Here's people coming, and we think about what the battlefield looks like today, beautiful grass, this and that. There are people going there to tour this thing, and the dead bodies are still in the line of battle. I mean, that's the
Mm-hmm.
stuff they're seeing. That's
The
what's
North
going on.
Carolinians at Iverson's. I mean, when we talk about Iverson's attack on day one, we have that perfect line of bodies that they say had
Mm-hmm.
fell in just perfect shape,
Mm-hmm.
and then that again that sums it up pretty well in my opinion, because it's going to show you that this wasn't a pretty battle. This wasn't. I mean, no battle is pretty either, but the way these men have fallen and some of the
Yeah.
treatment that is done to the bodies, and when it comes to hasty burials on the field, of course, conditionally, this kind of has to happen because you're in the middle of a very serious
Mm-hmm.
campaign at that, and you don't have the time necessary to spend on a proper burial. And obviously that comes later with the creation of the Gettysburg National Cemetery, the Gettysburg Address. We learned about that in November 1863, yada,
Mm-hmm.
yada, yada. So maybe if you guys are still here and hanging out with us by the time November comes around and you're not bored with us yet, we'll talk about the Remembrance Day and really what happens
Mm-hmm.
when Lincoln comes to Gettysburg, and maybe even broadcast from Gettysburg at some point on that. But when the Confederates left the cemetery on July 4th, ones that were able to leave did, and the U.S. Army soldiers were left behind with the U.S. Army medical personnel. Any Confederates that were left behind became POWs just like the Feds were prior. Good to know. They were paroled. Now, were most of them in Gettysburg paroled? I believe maybe I could be just shot in the dark here, but I think there was the parole system really kind of still prevalent after Gettysburg, and it
Yeah.
wasn't really until Grant kind of suspended that in 1864 upon his arrival to the Army of the Potomac. So there was
That's
still
when
like
that
this
happened.
exchange going on between the two armies at the point, and armies being Army of Northern Virginia and Army of the
Mm-hmm.
Potomac.
There's a great thing here because we have to remember there's another factor to this about the people that are flocking to the battlefield. And bear in mind, when people are flocking to this battlefield, this thing is just days old. The
Mm.
stench and everything's there. People are getting sick and nauseated and things like that. But you got there's actually two things here. Gettysburg Youth, and this is a quote from him. His name is Daniel Skelly, and actually wasn't Skelly Jenny Wade's boyfriend's name. Wasn't his name
Jack?
Skelly?
Was
Jack
it Scully
Skelly?
or Jack? Was it Scully or
Something like
Jack? Or
that.
was his name
I'm
Jack?
wondering
I
if this
can't
is
remember his
maybe his
name.
younger brother or something. But he
Maybe
said
it
that
might
the
even be
town.
him.
Yeah, he said that the town was filled up every day by people coming from all over the country, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, hunting their wounded or dead. The scenes were indeed distressing. So bear in mind, there are people there going there looking for their loved ones. Are they in the hospital? Are they dead on the field? And then Coco goes on to rate that intermixed with these sad cases and usually outnumbering them, onlookers whose main goal is to fulfill a desire to stand and behold and touch the macabre in all of its most bizarre forms. So basically, look, lose. People going there, I need to see war. I need to see this up close. I'm never going down to Virginia. I'm not going to Georgia or Mississippi. But
Right.
here it is, Pennsylvania. We can get there. And now you have all these people trying to find loved ones. And you still have, and there was another quote right before that, just talking about how Meade's trying to figure out how to protect the arms, protect the hospitals, do all this stuff. And yet he's got tourism probably almost on the same scale that Gettysburg gets tourism today. And
Yeah,
it's
no, absolutely.
you know, and then Meade's trying to like have a bat, you know, trying to figure out what to do, and you know, it was, I don't know,
Not the place
it's
to
just
be.
insanity.
Yeah, no, I think so.
And thank you, your buddy up there in Gettysburg, kind of answered some of the questions. So this was
It was Jack Skelly. See, I
it
thought
was
that's who
Jack's.
it was.
I'm like, because when Coco says that Daniel Skelly at Gettysburg Youth, I'm like thinking must be his younger brother. So awesome.
You know, yeah, I kind of the name rang a bell when I read it, and I was like, I swear that does sound familiar. But see, I didn't know, and for some reason, I was afraid. Like, if I called it Jack Skelly, I was like talking about Jack Skellington from that Nightmare, whatever that Nightmare Before Christmas thing is. I thought that was who it was. First, I could confuse it with such, but I'm like, no, it's got to be the same. One of the ones I like really, I think I found was from Jacob Hoke, and he writes a really good kind of a piece that he says, no words can depict the ghastly picture. The track of the great charge was marked by the bodies of men in all possible positions, wounded, bleeding, dying, and dead. Near the line where the final struggle occurred, the men lay in heaps, the wounded wriggling and moaning and groaning under the weight of the dead among whom they were entangled. In my weak and exhausted condition, I could not long endure the gory, ghastly spectacle. I found my head reeling, the tears flowing, and my stomach sick at the sight. For months, the specter hunted down my dreams, and even after 47 years, it comes back as the most horrible vision I have ever conceived. That's a very ghastly picture because, mind you, he's still viewing wounded men.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are still wounded out there on the field as well. Jonathan Place, welcome to the stream over
Hello,
there on
Jonathan.
Facebook. Appreciate you joining from across the pond. I think you're not across the pond. You're up in Pennsylvania, New York.
Yeah, no, that's Darren. Darren's across
That's
the pond.
Darren. That's Darren.
Darren probably had a very good July 4th.
We gave him a lot of hell that day, didn't we?
Oh, we had to mess with Darren big time.
Of course. I mean, we want our independence, only rightfully so.
Absolutely. But yeah, no, it's what they saw, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know because I don't think any of us will ever be able to, we can read this, but we'll still never know what it was like to go to those fields. I just find it kind of amazing how much people really needed to go to the field.
And I really hope we don't have to ever, deal with that kind of stuff.
Nah,
that's not something we'd want to see.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we mentioned this the other day, how it's like, we've seen things like 9/11 and then, bad hurricanes like Katrina, and I know there's a hurricane on its way to Florida right now and stuff like that, so hopefully nothing, it doesn't go that bad, but the Civil War was carnage on a level that none of us will ever be able to imagine. And it's prevalent here. I mean, even outside of Gettysburg, what we got there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the true people. I mean, you get into somebody like Elizabeth Thorne, whose husband, she's pregnant. I don't know, she's 6 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant.
She's the one that has the monument in Evergreen?
Yep. Her husband ran Evergreen Cemetery, and beautiful monument to her. And just to think about what they went through, and a lot of it was the women. trying to deal with this because I mean Gettysburg had its own regiment out there, but it's this is I don't know. Lydia was 13 to give you an idea. Yeah, but you had Lydia. Tilly Pierce was what,
Damn,
14 or
13.
15.
That's
Daniel
young,
Skelly,
man.
I don't know how old he was, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's young. That's real young.
I mean, we have
Uh,
what we got Sue Chancellor was 14 here at Chancellorsville. Then we got Feeney Tapp, who was 4
yeah.
when the Battle of the Wilderness happened. So,
I mean, these are probably defining moments of these kids' lives too, because obviously they grow up into adulthood and actually still very like almost image like with the recollection of how this battle plays out in the aftermath of the battle. And most of the stuff you hear about is kind of what it was like to live afterwards and have to
yeah.
return to that field once your house may have been commandeered as a headquarters of sorts, and you may also have had your house as a hospital, and some of you may not have left your house if you were back there. So you'd have to hear the sounds of wounded being amputated. You would have to hear the sounds of people being treated in very serious, nasty, disgusting, unsanitary conditions. You'd have to see men die. You would see things that are just indescribable and honestly still somewhat unbelievable today, even though it happened. Something on that magnitude did happen. And again, being that young, it's impressionable. It's going to leave a lasting impact, I think, and kind of ingrained in the memory there.
Oh, yeah,
But
absolutely.
some of those kids are the best sources we have.
It makes you wonder too, seeing these things, these kids that, especially in the South, but I mean in general, it's like how many of them, as they got older and the Spanish American War started, and they saw all this in their backyards and in their homes, and all of a sudden they're like, "Yeah, I'm going to go to war," despite the fact that I saw that.
Mm.
You know, it's like this revolving door. It's this revolving door, and I don't know, and something that also piqued me a little bit was we're like Gettysburg, 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 but yet here, 30 miles away in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, on July 10th, a U.S. Sanitary Commission agent found 70 red patients under charge. I'm going to skip over all the names and stuff, in horrible condition and without supplies of any kind. This is Chambersburg. So we just think about Gettysburg, Camp Letterman, and this and that, but all these towns. And how many people probably just riding along the road, going along the route that the Confederates went, were just finding bodies on the side of the road years and years later. This is the whole scene of south central Pennsylvania into that western part of Maryland must have just been one vast graveyard.
Right. It had to have been. Had to have been. For those that are familiar, and again, forgive me if you're not, but I do try to refer to some of like the very popular parts of the battlefield, but also some that maybe not get the amount of visitation that some of them do. The Rose Farm is one of them, and I like some of the stuff that we're seeing at the Rose Farm when it comes to the quotes afterwards, because the Rose Farm is one of the most heavily photographed parts of the battlefield, because that contains most of the Civil War dead that we see when it comes to being labeled as Gettysburg dead. Anywhere between the Rose Farm, the Bushman Farm, Devil's Den, and Slaughter Pen, those areas really are kind of a hot spot, and maybe some of the only spots that we know of that really feature some of the dead pictures. We do know that on July 6th, 1863, the photographers will both, I think, being Matthew Brady and Gardner. Yeah, O'Sullivan's Fredericksburg. But we know that Gardner and Brady make their way into Gettysburg, and pictures start to appear of these dead. And one of the quotes that I'm citing here is going to be from a gentleman by the name of J. Howard Wirt. And he has gotten into the area of Plum Run around the Rose Farm. And he says for us that in the garden of the Rose Farm, or the Rose House, in full view, nearly 100 rebels were buried, all around the barn, even within the house yard. Within a few feet of the doors were, in numbers, the scantily buried followers of the Confederate cause. 275 were buried behind the barn. A rebel colonel, 53rd Georgia, was buried within a yard of the kitchen door. No pen can paint the awful picture of desolation, devastation, and death that was presented here to the shuddering beholder who traversed these localities July 4th, 5th, and 6th, 1863. Fences and fruits of the earth had alike disappeared before the withering besom of destruction. All was trodden, miry waste, with corpses at every step, and the thick littered debris of battle, broken muskets and soiled bayonets, shattered caissons and the blood-defiled clothing, trodden cartridge boxes and splintered swords, rifled knapsacks and battered canteens. When a description of a scene such as was presented on these fields is attempted, words have lost their power and language is weak. And again, that itself is extremely, extremely powerful, I think. This is just a couple of days after the battle, fourth being a day directly after the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you have
that's powerful.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that there are bodies buried that close to somebody's house as well. It's just, I mean, it's sickening to think about. And Gettysburg citizens are the ones that have to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're the ones that actually have to go out in the field, go out of their front door, sometimes even in their own homes, and deal with this problem of thousands of bodies outside festering after the elements have hit it. Again, I know we try to keep it to Gettysburg, but alluding to the Fredericksburg, we have something known as the skeleton hunt that takes place in 1866. The area of Fredericksburg composes itself of 4 battlefields, and that produces around 100,000 dead in the 9 months of fighting that surrounds this area. Obviously, that's a logistical problem. How do you handle 100,000 dead in battles that sometimes caused wildfires and burnt corpses to nothing but bone?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got civilians in Fredericksburg getting in touch with the locality, explaining that they have hundreds of bodies turning up out of the dirt because they were so hastily buried that there's no proper burial. They're not 6 feet deep. They're not even 2 feet deep. Hell, if they're even lucky to have dirt thrown over top of them. So this area here is especially can, I think, relate in a way to Gettysburg because there's also a national cemetery created out of an absolute need here because of how many people are just hastily buried on these battlefields, and God knows how many are still out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just kind of like listening to you and flipping through. You made me think of a lot of things here. I'm looking at just farmers that,
Right.
This one farmer here at 10:30 p.m. on July 4th was awakened to find his farmyard filled with injured Confederates who took over a portion of his house. Where is it? Someone else counted at least 300 wounded Confederates left at Hagerstown and Williamsport. I mean, it's just like, imagine going to bed July 4th and all of a sudden you wake up and you got hundreds of soldiers. And yeah, you got to be up and start farming. This is their livelihoods. And I think that's another thing that we always got to remember. And one of the things that, God, I don't know if it was in Coco's book, but a lot of it may have been in Coco's book, but also in a book that Don Fons wrote about our cemeteries here.
Yeah, I know you're talking
about. How the farmers were just going to till. They're like, you either come get the bodies or guess what? They're fertilizer now. They were ready for their lives to somehow make some sort of normalcy. And, you think about, you read that, the damn South, blah, 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 a bunch of rebels. They don't care about the Union dead. You know what? I do believe it is in here. The Pennsylvania farmers were like, come get them or they're fertilizer.
Yeah, they did that.
In the North.
It wasn't just limited to one area.
These people's homes were destroyed. And who knows, what kind of diseases were festering amongst the animals. I mean, mad cow disease was around. You have all this stuff. And, the answer is yes, Key. I don't know. Should I say Key Garist or am I saying it wrong? But the answer is yes, I have. I read that. And Meg Rowland's Aftermath of Battle from ECW as well.
Now, Don's book on the cemetery actually was a park document for the longest time before it ever got published. And it was one of our, what we call the bound volumes, I guess. And we had them at the visitor center. And my first internship, I actually quartered in the Fredericksburg National Cemetery's cemetery house up there. And being that it was built in 1966 under the supervision of Montgomery Meigs, I was like, I want to learn about this. So that manuscript actually served as an invaluable source to like just knowing kind of the history, even the home that I lived in. And let alone, let's not even break down the experience of living in the Fredericksburg National Cemetery with your front window being the view of the stone wall and the sunken road. Like, I mean, that is just, even to this day, I almost get goosebumps thinking about that opportunity and how cool that was, and just formulative that was to the being able to study history. And
I did not get that
not
honor.
being braggadocious. Hey, you were at Chancellorsville with me though, man. You were at Chancellorsville.
I was at Chancellorsville. We were right where Dorsey Pender went over.
That's cool enough. That was still.
Yeah,
I was
I'll take Dorsey
about
Pender.
That. Absolutely.
Dorsey doesn't make it out of Gettysburg though.
Now, I imagine you mean Trossel, not Trestle, right? Like the Trossel farm?
Yeah.
T-R-O?
No, I know exactly what
I think I know exactly. Yeah.
Because I think that is also quarters for the seasonal staff.
Mm-hmm. It is. It does say so. Yeah. I drive past it all the time and obviously get a photo of it out of knowing what it's like to live in a cemetery and have people just randomly up in the windows. And you're like, hey, I'm knocking back. No. People live here. I've had to do it. I mean, I'll be sitting there. I just feel like I can see like people peeking in. I'm turning around like, excuse me. Like, no, that's not acceptable. Walk right into private residence. So let's look through the windows. All right, Coach. We're really referring to the strict fields of Gettysburg that have the burials and things like that. So, I'm not denying that Fairfield or Monterey Pass. I don't even think Monterey Pass is in Pennsylvania. So that doesn't. Is it in Pennsylvania? How's Monterey Pass at?
Monterey Pass is it's kind of like near the South Mountain Range or part.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, yeah, that's.
It's kind of like border. It's borderline, and Falling Waters comes after that.
Oh, it is in PA. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like borderline. I just saw it on the map recently.
Yeah, no, and like I said, we're not disputing that because that's not really what we're trying to discuss here tonight or dive into too much. We're trying to really talk about kind of just what's on like what you would go see as the National Military Park. That part of the ground is what we're trying to really dive into more so than going on to whether that's the end or not, because obviously it's debatable. When we say Gettysburg campaign, I think more so, everybody.
Yeah, really we're looking specifically at Battle of Gettysburg, and a lot of these people that we're referencing in like these farm things are people that are just, I don't know if they're just being dumped off because they're being asked to just be left on the side of the road because that wagon ride is just too painful for them, and that's the thing, is that like this guy here from New Franklin, Pennsylvania, he goes to bed July 4th. All of a sudden, 10:30 at night, he wakes up and his whole farm is just filled with soldiers, and that's not from a battle. That's just dumping prisoners off in a lot of ways. A lot of soldiers got abandoned, and that made life even more difficult because now the Union had to figure out what to do with that, and what to do with the abandoned Confederates.
Yeah, and you got to think about the Confederates themselves. I know there's farmers. I think it's even God, who was it that wanted to plow them up? There's something even in here, this book I believe it is, that talks about this farmer like literally holding up the bones of a Confederate. It's an illustration that was done, and he was ready to till the field, and he plowed into the 11th Mississippi's graves of believe even Company A over there by the wall. So we obviously see that these bodies are causing quite a problem for the environment as well. It's not even just necessarily that there's a horrible scene, because that's bad enough, let alone. But to know that you have things of that nature, we're looking at, now a very serious impact on even farming, these people's livelihoods, the way that they're going to make money to feed their families are now impacted because there are so many dead bodies laying around.
Right. Just to so Monterey Pass. I wish I'm seeing the borderline here, but I mean, there's South Mountain. Monterey Pass is right down here. So it's one of the passes within the South Mountain Range of Pennsylvania. But yeah, it's really borderline. It's really borderline of the states. I knew I saw it, which is an area I need to get to. Another area I need to get to.
So Frank Stoka, the 1st Battalion of Pennsylvania Militia, was going to be standing guard in a hospital in Gettysburg. And this is October, mind you. And now this is a little bit of a longer quote, but I want to read it because I think this shows you how serious it is in October.
Yep, go for it.
If you bear with me, go ahead. It's a perfect storm of balls swept through these woods from our batteries which felled the trees in every direction between the woods and Stony Ridge. Little Round Top is an open field, blue swamp, mud, and very rocky. This the rebels had to cross. Along the middle of the swamp there is a chain of the largest rocks I ever saw. It seems as though nature, in some wild freak, had forgotten herself and piled rocks, great rocks, in mad confusion together. This place is known as the Devil's Den, and the rebels in passing over the rocks were shot and fell down between the rocks into the stagnant water and blue mud. When I visited this place, I clambered down to these miserable looking beings. I almost strangled from the effects of the smell caused partly by the decomposed bodies. The crevice is from 10 to 15 feet deep. It is dangerous to pass over these rocks. Some skeletons of late have been hooked up with iron hooks attached to long poles. You will remember the rebels buried their own dead here. Scarcely any graves were dug here. They dragged them to where they could throw them into some crevices and tumbled them in and threw a few stones on them and thus left them. The visitor is shocked at every step while passing over this vast charnel house. As soon as the bodies began to decay, the stones began falling down among the skeletons, thus exposing all that each grave contains. It is not pleasant to the finer feelings of the human breast to see the frames of men, even if they are enemies, in every position conceivable. Here all the arms and legs that were shot off were not gathered and buried, they were lying among the rocks. I saw in a circle of one rod 4 legs lying with shoes and stockings on, while hands lay withering in the sun. That sucks. That absolutely sucks. Now, welcome from across the pond. I'm sorry if you tuned into that ghastly little quote there, but it's good to have you, Darren. Hope everything's faring well.
Yeah,
and that's go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. We had a little fun with you earlier, Darren, but you weren't here yet, and now you come in at this somber moment, and it's like, okay, the levity is kind of like drawn out of the room after that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you got to think too, like that. That's Gettysburg. I mean, that's October. That's, we're in July talking about the date on the 6th, seeing what it's like there. But now we're seeing sites months out in October where there are still remains just in the open, like in Devil's Den. There's still body parts, limbs just kind of hanging out all over the place. And it's sick. It really is. It's a nasty sight. It's not a beautiful thing by any means. I think it begs for the question too, like does that change throughout the battlefield? Are we limited to like Devil's Den, like scenes like this? You know what I mean? I mean, you go to Slaughter Pen, I'm sure there are still plenty of unturned graves.
Yeah, it's
no, it is, Darren. Absolutely.
It's something, and we gotta say, with stuff like that, the unsung heroes, the civilians, and just what they put up with and deal with to try to make things better at home. I mean, I don't know if you read this thing about Mary Caldwell Fisher of York, Pennsylvania, when she goes down there and she enters the thing, and I got a little bit of her quote here while you were reading that, and I was listening to that, I was like hearing this, and like somebody just kind of called her. They called her and a doctor to come over to this barn, and nobody knew, and they found 300 to 400 men just in there. Everyone had lost either an arm or a leg, and in some cases both were gone. One poor wretch had both legs and his right arm torn off by a shell. Mind you, a lot of these guys haven't been treated. And one had lost both arms and one leg. There was every conceivable form of wounds, cuts, and bruises. What horribly mutilated faces looked up to us from the straw-littered boards which formed the only beds. Exhausted with loss of blood, faint with hunger, they turned to us with imploring looks, and dying eyes brightened at the sight of friends bringing food and aid. Many had to be fed like infants. I saw tears of gratitude run down the cheeks of men who would have died in the ranks without flinching as they received the food we so gladly gave. That would have been hundreds of dead men who weren't treated. And, we go into battle, honorable, doing our duty for our country, whatever side it was. And no, it didn't say Union or Confederate. It was just saying what she saw and what she experienced. And, for a little, someone's there taking care of them. The people are suffering. The wounded soldiers are suffering. There was so much carnage around that town. And when I say around that town, I mean York, Carlisle, Chambersburg, Cashtown,
Hmm.
going down to Emmitsburg, Hagerstown, so on and so forth. It's just like they were finding people, or I should say soldiers, everywhere.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, the the one thing I do want to add today too is I'm sure you saw the stack of books behind me. I'll put the other one back up. I'm actually one volume out because it's in my hands. But the Confederate casualties at Gettysburg and the Union casualties
Yes.
at Gettysburg that are done by McFarland Press are, again, great sources. And
Hmm.
in doing so, I was able, when I came back from the trip I was on with Tattooed Historian, we went out and did the Sherfy Farm. I wanted to know, obviously, a little more about the Mississippians because there is a plan, I think, to cover that again in a live stream chat. And, of course, I want to invite John in for that one too. But I wanted to try to spend some more time just really diving into more of the attack and maybe some of the other regiments as well that take place on the Union side, and just really kind of making it maybe a series out of that in that part of the battle, and then move on from there to other parts of different battles. Like maybe break down a lot of that. Again, not maybe the
Absolutely.
regimental tactic, but finding the names, finding the people that were taking place in this, rather than just where the 17th Mississippi went, or this, who was killed, who was wounded, what were the scenes that they were seeing, what diaries can we pull, what from the ORs can we, especially when Savage Beatty releases those ORs, I think then is going to be the time to really dive into that more.
Hmm. Oh
But
yeah.
I mean, we got sources that they've helped us put out already, like the Bashauder papers. That's right here up on my shelf, and that can be
Right
used
there.
for something like this too, right? But
Yeah.
I think too, these right here. Once I get the Union ones, also, I want to make sure I have both before we do something like that. So obviously, I'm going back to Gettysburg on the 24th, and I've even flirted with the idea of maybe even shooting up Friday, but I haven't figured that out yet. Just for a couple hours, so I can raid a bookstore or two and visit a site
Hmm.
and go back home. It's not a bad day trip, but we'll see. It all depends on what the weather's like. And plus, I know we planned on maybe doing a pop up video here and there, so that's
Oh
also
yeah.
a thing.
I
That's right.
plan on doing a couple things with that coming
Yeah,
up.
so
And
you
who
guys
knows what's
stay
gonna happen
tuned.
Friday?
Yeah, who knows? We'll see. Maybe something, there could be video from anywhere Friday, but we definitely plan to try and do, well, we're going to do something Friday. Just, you'll see. Just wait. It's all going to be live. And I'm hoping to hit Best Buy either Wednesday or Thursday night to go grab some mics
Yeah. Yeah, definitely
so
might
that
sound
we
good.
have a little bit of a better, stream out there, or maybe get some
Hmm.
on Amazon. So if it's from Amazon, we'll have to use yours for the time being, but that's okay. We
We'll
figured
see.
that it works. Yeah, we'll see. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure
But
it out. This is a growing process,
it
people.
is,
Bear
and you
with
guys
us.
are along for the ride. And I mean, I can't again take time real quick before we dive into the last little segment here, but I do want to thank you guys for the supporting and dealing and helping with the patience that we need for this crappy switch. Facebook made it extremely difficult, but the fact that there's a whole fresh page, I think, and you guys have been able to follow over, that's incredible.
There is a lot of support for this page right now. We're
Seriously,
both
and
blown away. Been following from our
yeah,
video on July 4th. Every day there's new people liking this and following this. So
and
hey,
engaging,
you.
and we'll continue to post daily, just memes or quotes or
Oh yeah.
articles or just little tidbits that even we can type up for you when we have the
Oh yeah.
time. Or
And
John,
Darren,
feel free. Yeah, go ahead.
and Darren, I think the England's opening some stuff up. We expect you on a plane soon, mate. And yeah, I'm gonna say mate. You better still be watching when I say
And
that.
and I encourage all of you too that are watching, if you're on Facebook or if you see us on a different social media platform, post even when we're not live. Just share something. That page is a community for everybody. So if you have any
Hmm.
articles you want to share, if you've even written something and you want to share that, or send it to us and you want us to post it for you, please do, because we won't mind. I mean, so you have the opportunity to share something on that page. If you want stuff posted or anything of that nature, please, like I said, make you share it. Either send it to us if you don't want to post it yourself. It's whatever is comfortable with you, but we want that page to be for you as well. There needs to be a place where historians who don't necessarily have that platform can all come together and engage with each other, and also branch
Hmm.
out and bring that to the general public as well. Make it accessible to the public. Don't want us to use a whole bunch of big terms and go too far into the military minutia to where it loses people. Just make it more human.
Right.
That's what the Unfiltered Historians for, is to really bring you what the human side of the Civil War and other portions of history are going through. But I want to introduce two soldiers from the 17th Mississippi Infantry, specifically Company F, the Sam Benton Relief Rifles.
Mm.
The company was organized and enlisted into service on the 29th of April, 1861, at Mount Pleasant, Marshall County, Mississippi. It
Okay.
was composed of residents of Marshall and Tippah counties and was accepted and mustered into Confederate service the 27th of May, 1861, in Corinth. Two soldiers, two brothers, that participated on May 2nd or July 2nd in the attack against the peach orchard. First one's R.A. Oursler.
Mm.
He was a third sergeant, and he was buried on Christian Scherfer's on the road to Crisis near the blacksmith shop that would have been owned by the Warfields. It's just outside of the peach orchard. And there are some that may say he was a first lieutenant, but it's officially down as third sergeant. And his burial location was shown on Ikers Mill Road. He was 22, and he was a farmer, and he actually enlisted on the 1st of September, 1861 in Leesburg, Virginia. His brother will fall killed the same day. He's actually listed as a first lieutenant, so there could be a chance that they flipped the two, and it's the other way around. First lieutenant, third sergeant. But he's buried on the right side of the Warfield blacksmith shop. Still, unless there's somewhere local that they've reinterred them, we have no record of reinterring those bodies at all.
Yeah, I'm looking at Warfield now.
He was in Tennessee, born in Tennessee as well, a single 21-year-old school teacher, and he enlisted on the 29th of May, 1861 at Corinth, and was elected first lieutenant on April 26th, 1862. George H. Poole, who was another soldier that unfortunately shares the same fate in dying on July 2nd during that charge again of the 17th Mississippi from Company F. He's buried on the right side of the Warfield blacksmith shop on Eckert's Mill Road from the Emmitsburg Road. He was born in Mississippi. He was 18 years old. He was a student in Early Grove, Mississippi, and he enlisted also on the 29th of May, 1861. So Company F's three notables that I have here that I can, go say that might still be on the battlefield are those three there, two of them being brothers. So a mother lost two of her sons in one day and have never found the remains or had them reinterred. They were stuck next to the Warfield house, which is just recently restored. And if you go to the Tattooed Historians page, you can see that he took some pictures and did a walkthrough of that lucky duck. Got to go to the Warfield house. And I know it is open to the public on occasion, I believe, or maybe seasonally. Not too sure on that. You'd have to check Gettysburg website for that. But that Warfield house is still there and recently done with renovation, I believe, or they've done some restoration work to it. But again, that's a place that, still, I think, houses some of these Confederates, specifically of the 17th Mississippi. And we did talk about the 17th Mississippi because they're the ones that are really right up on the Scherfy property. I mean, they're
absolutely
on the house, pushing the 118th Pennsylvania, the ones, again, John and I spoke about last weekend. So obviously this is, those are the ones I wanted to go home and look at Mississippians right away because I know those are the ones that were fighting in the Peach Orchard and maybe put some names to some of the men that led that attack on Barksdale's side. And also once the Union volumes are obtained, I went to go and pull some from the Union regiments. So like the 63rd Pennsylvania, the 114th Pennsylvania, some of the batteries that are there too. They're worth noting. We want to talk about the whole story there. We want to go ahead and grab some of the Union accounts. And I mean, obviously these are the guys that are getting pretty smashed, I guess you could say, by the Confederates. And they're going to take some heavy casualties, maybe even more so than what Barksdale and the Mississippians are taking. I mean, because they're going pretty far into the field, but just in that direct area of what we spoke about is where I really want to maybe focus some of these soldiers. And of course we'll branch out at Gettysburg, but it's not always just going to be Gettysburg. This is just because it's July. It's still the first few days in July. The 105th. Yes, I actually believe they were. I've got Lino's maps here to check. 1 second.
That's what I'm flipping through right now.
Oh, man, that's what I'm talking about. And if you don't have that, Kendrick, I highly, highly recommend you snag a copy of that. Yeah, highly. It is amazing.
Actually, that's not even the front of it. That was kind of like an oddball shot of it. This is what the front cover would look like.
I'm hoping it's common enough that people know the book, but if not, please, that is just a great. I can't stress enough.
While Tyler looks at that, I just want to make a little comment about what Tyler is doing. Is very important, and I touched on it a little bit. That's my medicine alarm. We get so caught up on people like this. Here's one of my bookmarks. These are the guys that are on the bookmarks. These are the guys that are on the cover of books and stuff. But in the end, who were these two brothers? Who were these two random guys from Mississippi? That's ultimately what these stories are about. We focus so much on, and because they're making the decisions, we focus on the big names and the big figures and this and that. And it's so easy to just get caught up in creating those two guys that Tyler was just talking about out of Corinth, Mississippi and all that. And just kind of like, okay, they're one of the 53,000. But then there's Lee and Meade and Pickett and Longstreet and
Oh
Hancock.
yeah.
But remember, every one of these people have a name going into there.
So John,
Most
the
of them are
105th,
nowhere. Most of them are unknown today.
the 105th is they're right on the flank of the 57. So they're going to be to the right of the 57 Pennsylvania over there in the Peach Orchard. So they're on the, if you're facing the Sherfy barn from the Emmitsburg Road, so if you're standing with the Peach Orchard to your rear, you're going to see the 114th on the left, Company B of the Company B, New Hampshire. It's going to be next to the Wentz House, which does no longer stand, but there is a remain foundation, I believe, just to get an idea where the Wentz House was. But they're right there. You can see on the map he has there. They're on that left
There's
side.
Sherfy Farm right there. Just so not to talk over you, Tyler. I just want to show
You're
them.
fine. You're fine.
Sherfy Farm, which makes this the Peach Orchard here.
Mm-hmm.
So here's where Sickles will bend back his line, and then here's Humphreys division going along here. So as you can see, 105th PA there. So they are going to be. Looks like they'll take the. What'd you say? The 18th Mississippi. They'll take their hit.
Yeah, they're probably really rushing into the 18th and a mixture of the 13th. Yeah. I'm sure. The 114th is engaging with the 13th and the tail right of the 17th Mississippi. So I mean, it makes sense as to why the 17th Mississippi boys we were just referring to were buried next to the Warfield House or the blacksmith house of that. Excuse me, because I mean they're right up on their lines too. And in fact, I wonder if this actually has the outbuilding on the map. That would be kind of cool. Yeah. And I'm wondering if that's the two buildings I'm seeing there that would be on today, West Confederate, because I see where Wolford's attacking on map 294 on page 243. You're going to see the Warfield House it's a zoomed out version, but there's the Warfield House and then there's a house in the orchard over there. But there's also two buildings, it looks like, bordering that road, which would be, again, the intersection of Millerstown Road and the West Confederate Avenue today.
Yeah, and actually, what you're saying something very important too. Not only that, like I think you're right, but again, just with the 105th PA, I mean, they're going to move out. I mean, that's the 105th PA's black box right there. So they're actually moving out off the road, and they're going against. Like they're going to charge an attack across.
Yeah, same with the 114th.
Yeah, so like Sickles' guys weren't just standing there being like, "Okay, let's go. We'll wait for you." No. They were going at it. They were going for it. Yeah, absolutely, Darren. Every one of their stories matters. You know, it's a lot of what we were hitting on. Gettysburg 160. Yeah, I'm definitely game for Gettysburg 160. We gotta get through 159 first, but definitely.
I think it's a Trossel farmland, actually, bud. Looking at it, the Trossel farm's right on to the right of that. If you go down a little further, so again, John, if you want to show them the map again, the one on 241, 292 on 241.
Page 292?
Yeah, yep. 241, map 292.
241. Oh, got it. 241.
It says Ames is so Trossel Lane. Yeah, it is Trossel Lane.
So we're talking about this guy right here?
Mm-hmm.
So that's Trossel Lane. Well, yeah. Trossel should no, Trossel's up here. Sorry. I'm off. Yeah, I realize everybody I'm doing everything backwards in the camera. So yeah, because Trossel is right there. So that should be the Park Road today. Sickles' monument where he was wounded is right there. Here's the Excelsior Brigade here, where Sickles' bust should be in the monument, but it's not because he squandered the money for it. Good old Dan. 7th New Jersey, that's the Bullet, the monument. So just to kind of like place where you might be thinking if you're driving around the battlefield when what you're seeing. Basically, actually, if you follow the Park Road, you actually come up this way. This down here would be the Loop area down here. Then you come up, and then you remember the Park Road actually cuts out, and I'm going the wrong way. I want to go. I'm kind of doing it wrong. Park Road takes you up towards the Trossel Farm this way, and you'd have to drive up to the Peach Orchard, which is here. It kind of like the Park Auto Tour takes you a different way,
right?
So Peach Orchard you got to kind of do on your own. That's the part of the damn shame about it is we talked about this about how a lot of times the park roads can really screw up the story, and so many stories are missed, like these brothers, like these men of the 105th PA that we're talking about here. That I never realized the 105th PA or any of them went out. I thought Sickles' guys are just on the road, and here's a whole other part of the story that that we didn't know. And who ordered that? Who ordered them to go forward? I'm guessing Humphreys had a little something to do with it,
I
but
would imagine
still.
so. And I mean, and that I'll get into that too more because like I arguably I don't know a lot. And, I know to the extent of what me and the tattooed historian did on July 2nd. And that was my first experience. And I think I mentioned that how important that was that I'm reading that on the side of my Upton project. I almost want to say that I didn't put the Upton project on hold for a minute, but I have been so captivated by the peach orchard and just the engagements there that I've been going back through the Peach Orchard at Gettysburg book. I have Fonz's Day 2 laying out next to me somewhere on the bed over there. I have so many books spread there and on my desk. It's unrealistic. But I'm really trying to make sense of that attack itself. So, of course, it came naturally that I drew to those Mississippians right away. They deserve, I think, some recollection as well because they were killed and buried just next to the house or the blacksmith shop by the house. So, and then again, most of the bodies that are reinterred to Hollywood Cemetery or any surrounding cemetery is at least listed. But these were some that I have found even throughout the whole collection here that aren't listed as reinterred. So that begs a question: where are the boys? Where are those two brothers?
They still sleep, I believe, in Gettysburg. They sleep in Gettysburg.
I know there might be a question somewhere along the lines of, well, why don't we find them and reinter them? Why would you disturb a resting place of 158 years now?
No,
I'm not about it. I mean, and maybe some of you are. Of course, opinions differ, and there's no right or wrong to that. But in my mind, I just think they're resting for 158 years. Why disturb it now?
Yeah, we got that here in our park. We got 3 bodies on Chatham Manor that just leave them. We got a whole national cemetery here, but the park decided to leave them at Chatham.
It's a beautiful spot to rest, if you ask me. I mean, you got the whole commanding view of Fredericksburg. Hell, if you want to bury me up there too, you can leave me there and forget about me for freaking 150 years. I don't care. Just put a little thing that says unknown historian or something, or the unfiltered historian on it, and just call it a day. I like it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And
they must have relatives, and I wonder if they know that this information about them being. I mean, I'm sure the information's there, but I wonder if they know where exactly their relatives are at. And I've seen this firsthand working at Fredericksburg. When I would staff, the visitor center, and I'd have families come in and finally think that they're going to see where their ancestors buried because it says killed at Fredericksburg. And they come to Fredericksburg ready to take a picture of it. It's been a lifelong thing. And, these people that's the one that really broke my heart was an 89-year-old woman who wanted to see her great granddad. I had to break it to her that he's our unknown. We will not know any spot on that battlefield where he's buried. And
I remember that Kojak.
He brings up something.
I remember that.
So I went on my first Gettysburg tour in 2007, 6 or 7. That was brought up on my tour. And of course I was so young then. That is the only thing I remember from the tour because one of the guides that gave us a tour was one of the few that walked and stumbled upon it in the railroad cut when the hand was sticking out. So obviously he was telling us that story with vivid detail and, young me should have paid more attention, but I mean, I was stupid young, and I think I was still just shocked that I was at Gettysburg, and I was just so ready to get to Little Round Top that he needed to stop talking and get me to Little Round Top as soon as possible, because that's the only thing I knew about Gettysburg at the time. But again, that story and that uncovering of that body in '96 really left an impact with me enough to where I remembered it, and even to this day can vividly almost remember that specific part of the tour, and that's about it. Yeah. And then Kendrick says here that I got lucky that my ancestor was one of the few known graves at Fredericksburg. Yeah. I mean, and I don't mean like, hey, you got lucky, but yeah, you got lucky. Yes, you did, because that is a very rare thing to have somebody that can walk up there and point exactly to where their ancestors at. What is it? We have 86,000, not 86, it was 8,000 buried up there. Do you remember the number exactly?
There's 15,000 up there.
15,000 up there.
85% are unknown.
The sick thing is when you walk up there, I mean, it's just sad. You'll see a little a stone. What are the government square stones that you see for a lot of the unknowns with the plot number? But underneath are either bodies or body parts that are with it. And some of these range up to 9, and you'll have an entire line, 30 or 40 rows of just 6, 9, 12, 5.
Just
4,
skulls
1.
or arms or something.
And it just floors you when you see that, because you know that these are multiple lives, multiple sons, multiple brothers, multiple empty chairs. Some of them just pieces of bodies. Either skulls have been picked up. I mean, you have Frank Wilkeson and his wonderful little memoir there called Turned Inside Out.
Mm-hmm.
and he makes it to the wilderness. He picks one of the members that he's sitting next to of his regiment picks up a skull that was a remnant of the Battle of Chancellorsville, and like very ghoulishly laughs and says that, "Oh, boys, this is what we are all coming to tomorrow, and some of you closer to this than others." And I mean, he's picking up a man's skull and playing. There's not going to be that skull connected to the body for it to bury. So if that skull's laying anywhere, it's possibly in the National
Mm-hmm.
Cemetery if it was ever recovered. If some local didn't pick it up and do some of the same stuff, or who knows how many people went around and grabbed skulls and kept them for themselves because, oh, look, a skull. It's
Yeah,
absolutely horrible to do and disturb a body like that. But it was. I'm sure it was done. I'm not trying to diss on the citizens of Fredericksburg and surrounding area from the time. That's what they did. They found him,
that's
they
what they
burned
did.
him, or they got him removed to the cemeteries. There were 2 temporary cemeteries built in the wilderness, for example. There's a Confederate cemetery, Spotsylvania. So all these bodies, and Kojak mentioned this earlier that every Civil War battlefield produced this, and he's absolutely right. This
Yep,
is not. I shouldn't say it's just limited to Gettysburg and Fredericksburg. This is nationwide.
absolutely.
This is a nation dealing with a war that caused so many casualties that this is now a problem.
Yeah,
That this is a very real problem that still needs, I think, to have some more focus. And Don Fons paints a wonderful picture of all this with a book known as Where Valor Proudly Sleeps. And that does focus on, of course, the Fredericksburg National Cemetery. But if you look at it, I think it absolutely applies. So Kendrick says here that since you guys are Chancellorsville guys, I need to get with you and walk the 11th Corps area. Absolutely do. I'm reading the 11th Corps by James Poole right now, and it's got me itching to drive up there from Richmond. Well, you let me know when you want to drive up because him and I both have a day off Friday, so we're planning to do something. I don't know what your schedule's like, but if you want to see some Chancellor still stuff, man, we got you. And I read a
yeah,
book that I'm gonna have to recommend to you there, Kendrick, called Chancellorsville and the Germans. It used to be extremely expensive, but our visitor center has finally got paperbacks for $20. It's no longer a $45 hardback, and I am beyond happy about that because I now have a copy on my shelf. I couldn't justify it too much because I just did buy James Poole's for $40. And I'm like, yeah, what would I look like buying another Chancellorsville and the Germans book for $45? Then I saw it for 20. I was like, gimme, taking it
there
home.
you go.
So ready for it. But
It's
the 11th Corps,
dangerous.
yeah, it is extremely dangerous. And yeah, definitely give me some notice on when you do plan to come up because I would love to sit here and pour through the other book I have that was just recently. It's almost a regimental history even, but it was written by God, what is his name? Brian Matthew Jordan. Where a thousand fell or a thousand may fall.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I know what you're
and
talking
then
about.
the
I don't have
focus
that
on
one yet.
it. Oh, it's supposed to be really good, and I flipped through a little bit of it because I did pick it up at Barnes and Noble a few months back. But it focuses a lot on a lot. It is about in an Ohio regiment. And I believe it's let's see what it is. I have it right here. But I want to read that because it's also very touching on the 11th Corps Gettysburg too. It's A Thousand May Fall: Life, Death, and Survival in the Union Army, and that is by Brian Matthew Jordan. There's a great interview with Brian Jordan on Civil War Talk Radio. If you guys listen to Gary Prokopovich over there, I know he's on his summer break, but I definitely want to shout out that because that kept me fueled when I was working at the Capitol, when I had to put my headphones in and do my stuff. That was who I was listening to religiously. Even today, when I know that there's an episode, I pop it up open. So I'm a Monday, so weekends work better for me. Okay, we'll have to get something planned then because I think I'm working this weekend. I know I'm working this weekend, but the following weekend, I can see if I can't snag a Saturday or a Sunday and we can spend some time out there. And make sure you bring a hungry stomach too, because we have some really cool breweries and restaurants around the area. So bring an empty stomach with you, because we definitely want to feed you and get some dinner afterwards and dissect the battle that we just went and saw.
Mhm.
There is a brewery where Jackson got his arm amputated too. It's called the Wilderness Run Vineyard. So if you want to add to the ambiance and go get a beer and talk about Jackson's amputated arm and the field hospital there, and also the field hospital and close pretty much one of the headquarters for the Battle of the Wilderness by the Wilderness Tavern, that's your spot. They still have a good
Oh,
cigar
yeah.
shop in there too. So if you're a cigar guy, you're a beer
Yeah.
guy, and you like food trucks, dude, Wilderness Run is like one of the coolest things to do after a battle
Mhm.
visit. But the book I was referring to before we close up here, because I did promise John 7:10. We're already running 7:14, so I don't want to make his mouth hurt too much more than it already probably does.
Oh, it does.
I'm sorry, man, but
It's
I'm
all right.
so happy you decided to come on still, and thankful that you joined. It's the 107th Ohio that he
Yep.
refers to. They are also members of the 11th Corps.
Tyler just did a recommendation. I'm going to do one too, but it has nothing to do with Gettysburg, but it has to do with something we're talking about the what kids saw in the war. And Savas Beatty put this out. It is incredible, but this I believe is down in the Atlanta area.
My boy Leroy.
So
Not Leroy
Definitely.
Jenkins, you gamers. It's Leroy Gershom. Great
So
and
yeah,
a very sad book, by the way.
yeah. So you want
Very
to?
sad.
I think he's 12. Yeah, he's 12. So
He
amazing,
mentioned that he's got
amazing.
a disease too.
Hmm.
He's withering away from a disease.
Yes, he
I believe
is.
it's consumption, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe he's
Tuberculosis.
got. Yeah.
So again, if you get let's see, he knows what I'm talking about. Just side note, I have a coworker that has a Leroy Jenkins name tag, and I have tremendous respect for him. Immediately looking at him like, I normally we're supposed to make you change that, but because your name is Leroy Jenkins, you can keep it. Last but not least, we were supposed to bring this up last week or Sunday. I didn't bring it up. I'm considering a book club.
Book
John, I
clubs.
think John has been open to the idea too. We're
Oh,
gonna finish up,
absolutely. You don't got to convince me.
and it's all y'all too. We want to see if anybody would actually be interested. So my idea, and I know there's a way for me to get an Amazon link to where we can actually have somewhat of a discount on this if needs be. But that way your money can still report. I got, and I'm in from Tim, so that's kind of cool. But I'm feeling like we assign a chapter, do not really assign, but go by, whatever chapters we do each week. And we'll do this weekly. So like on a day that works for everybody, we can figure that out. And it would be a live video just like this, but where we have the chat option in, or maybe even a Zoom group. So it'll formulate.
Hmm.
I'll throw some ideas up on Facebook here in the next couple of days, and I'll tune back in here and we'll update. But if we do this, I'm going to plan to do this. Let's see, I'm going to look at July because I want to try to get it next week. What's that? That's Rice Bull's Diary, Soldiering.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
Kojak just brought it up. So
Kojak, you have brought up a fantastic book, man. Oh my gosh. I have been trying to find that for so freaking long, dude. Just simply for the Chancellorsville Hospital references that he has in his wounding at Chancellorsville. Because I don't know if you remember my first video I ever did where I had the film facing me and I started kind of talking and flirting with this idea was on Elijah Paxton's death.
Yep.
And over there is also like the exact location almost of where Rice Bull shot. And I've known Rice Bull since the Civil War combat days. So when we talked about me first getting into the Civil War and watching those VHS tapes, blah, 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 that video, that Chancellorsville one, had Rice Bull, someone acting as Rice Bull, and I that was my first like idea of a soldier. So I've known about Rice Bull and I've known his story since I was 7, 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why at this point I have not been able to get to that book, and I hate it. But I am going to talk about our first book. I'm going to look real quick at our calendar to see what day would be a good one. John, you can get back to me if it's not good, but I want to start in July, either the second week or the third. And I know you're reading something, so if you're willing to pair it with it and just do a chapter or two a week to try to get into.
Yeah, well, we got to figure out a book first.
Well, I already know the book, and I'm going to send. I think I've mentioned it to you earlier because I think.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right, we'd finish in time to actually be near the anniversary, and we can pick up a smaller book on the topic that would cover that. So, like, my two ideas here, and I'm going to pull the first one really quickly just to get us maybe in the spirit, because I know soon that the second volume should be coming out. And one of my favorite battlefields here, hold on, I got to go through the like 40 books I have over here on this topic. The second volume should be coming out very soon. It is not a light read by any means. I'll bring my copy to ECW edited by Jack Bauer. Oh, wow. That I would like to see that. That's cool. He said there's a relatively new book about Caldwell's division in the wheat field. Yep, I picked that up last year in Gettysburg, actually. I have that sitting here on the Gettysburg shelf. So that could be a possibility, but I'm going to steer away from Gettysburg with this book talk club thing I would like to do. And again, I have my calendar here. I'm looking at maybe actually having the first meeting for this Thursday the 15th. If not Thursday the 15th, we'll do it Friday the 16th on the evening.
Thursdays may be good for me, actually.
Thursday should be good for you. Okay, so let's plan for Thursday the 15th. I have to check my work schedule. If that changes, I'll update and actually create the event once I know my work schedule and get with John. But the first book we're going to look at, if John agrees, Scott Hartwig's absolute masterpiece. This isn't going to actually cover the Battle of Antietam itself. That's going to be volume 2 that we're going to actually run into. But I was going to recommend maybe doing Carmen's study, but it's so hard to pick that up and find it everywhere. It's not as easily accessible as Scott's right now or Mr. Hartwig's. And this is a hefty read. So I feel like if we were to do 2 chapters a week, let's see, how many chapters are in this thing? John, you're going to have to be my mathematician here once I get to the chapter title. Eve of Battle is the last chapter. So that means we are going to be looking at roughly, say, 2 chapters a week. There we go. 19. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. That's 9 weeks. There is September 17th in 9 weeks? Or is that at?
Yeah. About, yeah.
So that's good? Just about?
Just about.
That'd be perfect. All right, cool. So then I guess that would be a good way to do that. And then David Welker's The Cornfield, which should be what we follow up with that.
Okay.
So those would be the 2. Carmen is on Kindle for relatively cheap. That's interesting. That means just go get it if you can, because it's amazing, absolutely incredible to the study. But I think it'd be cool to really break down since we're coming up on the anniversary of Antietam here soon and the invasion of Maryland, is to maybe follow that almost in like a real time. So as we're reading this, we're going to start seeing parallels and dates as the book goes on, obviously, because the beginning of the book actually parallels August and July, because we talk about, it really opens up on the McClellan's return to the army and Pope's screw ups, which are fun to talk about. But John, do you have any closing remarks? Anything you want to say to our friends here before we go ahead and
none. Just appreciate the support. My mouth's killing me, so I gotta go take something. And yeah,
I don't blame you, man.
We'll be back soon.
Yes, we will. So I don't know when the next one stream's going to be. I'm going to come up with a topic tonight, set a date for that, get with John, put it public tonight, and have that posted. We'll figure. John, is a day this week, any other day this week good for you? Because I go back to working. I think next week I'm actually working rather late, so this will be my available evenings. Well, obviously, when I'm doing my weird schedules, I can do stuff during the day too when we get towards that. But I think for this week, I want to do one more. And if you're up for one more, I just have to figure out an evening time that would be good for you.
I got to see how my schedule goes. Birthday weekend, got a lot of stuff going on with the wife. So we'll,
like I said, just give me
text me and we'll see.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I'd shoot for 6 again. Maybe it seems like a good time. 6, 7, somewhere around there. Shouldn't be.
Thursdays usually sometimes are better. Thursdays. So,
okay, yeah, and since we can't do field Thursdays, well, I'll be in touch about Thursday, and I'll create the event, because if he can't do it, I still want to make sure that there's some content being brought on a Thursday stream while I have the availability. So I'll come up with a topic, and I'll run it by John. If he's there, awesome. If not, I'm going to be sad that he's not with us.
And then I'll pop on when I can, too, and do things.
Yes, please. Absolutely. So you'll be seeing both of us on here. But, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in for this little talk we wanted to do. I'm sorry it wasn't crazy in depth, but then again, these things aren't really for that. It's just to talk about what we know about the aftermath, and I'm maybe even spawned myself an idea to try to look into the Gettysburg dead there that are buried by the Warfield blacksmith shop.
There you go.
John, if you want to stick around for 2 seconds when I log off out of here, just to recap for a quick second, I'll let you go and do your medicine.
Sounds good.
Folks, thank you guys again for everything. We will see you all again Thursday night at 6.
Sounds good.